If the Premier League season started tomorrow, Crystal Palace would be one of the most exciting teams in the league. They have a young core of talent that is ready to take the next step. They've got a good new coach, and they would be the most likely candidate ready to jump into European football next year. But the season doesn't start tomorrow. The transfer market is wide open, and Crystal Palace is the hottest place to shop. And that's a problem for the fundamental tenets of FFP and how rosters are built. We're going to talk about why that is here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub. Who would have thought it would be Crystal Palace, not Manchester City, not Arsenal, not Chelsea, not United, but Crystal Palace, who has more representatives from its club on the English national team for this summer's Euros than any other club in the Premier League. And yet that's where we stand, and it's their impressive young core that makes them, at the moment, one of the most exciting teams to watch for next season. Except we know there's a strong possibility that they're going to get players poached left and right. Selhurst Park has become the best place to shop this summer for the big clubs who want talented young players, because Crystal Palace has a ton of them. And the fact that they can't keep these guys is a fundamental problem with how the financial structure of the Premier League works, FFP and all the regulations. It's one thing to regulate spending to go get players. It's another to not enable you to keep the ones you have. So that's what we're going to talk about today and why Crystal Palace can't keep all their nice things. But before we get into that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me down below. Make sure you hit that comment section too. Let me know what you think. Who should they sell? Who should they try to keep? Do they have any chance? Get down in those comments. Let me know what you think. You can also leave some comments on Twitter at Pitchside Pub and check out the website pitchsidepub.com. So again, if the league started today, if the season started today, they would be everybody's pick for the exciting young up-and-coming team, right? More so than the Brightons and the West Hams and the Villas. And they would be the club, at least in my opinion, that would be poised to make the jump next season. The new manager, Oliver Glasner, has them playing a fantastic brand of football. They really ended the season on a high note. He has come in and given them some new life, some organizational structure, and really looks like he could be a solid manager for years to come at Palace. And then couple that with what is probably the strongest young core of players in that 20 to 25 range that you can build around and grow with as a nucleus to really compete. You got players like Eze and Olise. Adam Wharton just joined. Mark Gay has become a starter for the English national team. I mean, this is a really, really strong core of young players in that 22 to 25 range. Adam Wharton's only 20. He's a real youngster, but he looks like he's going to be a mainstay. And so naturally what happens is the big clubs come calling. And players like Michael Olise have been linked with every club under the sun for a few years now. Chelsea is strongly linked. They really want him. Man City has been linked to him. They would love to have him. Everybody would love to have him. He's an incredibly talented player who can't seem to make either the French or the English national team, probably because he has not been completely healthy. But, his talent level is elite, and there's a reason why everybody wants him. And Mark Gay has become a real stalwart on the back, and there's now links with him and Manchester United. And, every club looking to solidify their back line is going to come looking for him. And so, Crystal Palace has the opportunity to make a ton of money. They also have an opportunity to build for the future and keep this nucleus together. The question is whether they're going to be able to. Crystal Palace is not truly up against the FFP hard line, but they could be. They wouldn't be too far away from it, and they're not going to be able to go be big spenders on the transfer market this summer, and that's okay. That's okay. That's not their MO. So that's not what I'm suggesting here, but they've done some smart shopping. They got Olise for cheap. They got Wharton for cheap. They've developed these guys. They get them young and they develop them very much in that Brighton model. But at what point are we going to be able to see teams like Palace, like Brighton, keep some of these players and be able to pay them the weekly wages that they need to be okay staying at a place like Palace? And it's a tough sell because they can't offer Champions League football, not yet. right? They can't offer even Europa League football. So if these players are getting to that point in their career where they're ready to make a jump to a club that is going to be able to offer them that, well, then there's only so much a team like Palace can do until they jump into that threshold, right? Until they get up there, at least into that top 6, and offer some Europa League football, which they're not going to be able to do without keeping some of these players, so it's a catch-22. But not all these guys are at that level yet, and if you're talking about going to a club like Chelsea, well, you're not offering that either. And so, yeah, I guess you got the Conference League, but it's really not the same. It's not like you're jumping to Arsenal or to City and you're guaranteed Champions League football, or Liverpool. So it comes down to the money and the wages, the insane amount of wages that these big clubs are allowed to pay. And that's where the FFP regulations do need some adjusting, and there needs to be some sort of differential between what you spend on the transfer market and what you spend on wages. Now, it can't be quite that simple because the big clubs just pay ridiculous amounts of wages, and that needs to be policed too. But wages for re-signing your own players need to be calculated differently so that you have the right to spend that money on your own players and keep a guy like Michael Olise or Mark Guéhi. I mean, these are guys that they're in your early 20s, and you should be building around. Those two players should be at Palace for a decade, assuming Palace can continue to ascend and give them the European football that those types of players deserve. They deserve to play at that level as well. But assuming they can get there, they shouldn't have to leave just to go make the money they deserve. And the fact that they can't spend that, at least on their own existing players, is a problem. And Palace owner John Textor, he's an American, and he's outspoken, and he's not particularly likable. He also owns Lyon and a couple other clubs, and he's building one of these multi-club ownership groups, which I don't love. But he has been very outspoken about FFP and said, I'm a billionaire. Why can't I spend more money? And we've got a couple other billionaires on the ownership team. Why can't we spend our money? And you know what? He's got a valid point. Now, again, I'm not advocating that they should just go spend, $500 million on the transfer market like Chelsea did and be allowed to do that. No, that's not beneficial to anybody either. But they should be allowed to spend to retain their own players, and that's the rule that needs to change. They should, if they can convince Eze or Olise or Guéhi to want to stay and be a part of this team, and Adam Wharton, and the only thing they need to do to ensure that is to sign them to new contracts, doubling their salaries. They should have the right to do that. They should be able to do that within FFP. And at the moment, they probably can't, because while they're not in danger, they're up against it more than they'd probably like to be. So the reality is that Palace will probably have to sell off at least one or two pieces. Now, the question is, which ones should they sell? Well, obviously, that depends on the offer coming in. And if somebody really wants to just blow them away from Michael Olise and offer them 80 million euros, yeah, you're probably going to go ahead and take that, and that one sale might allow you to keep all the rest of those players and up their wages and solidify the whole thing. And you'd have to consider doing that, although that would be a devastating blow. In reality, they should probably sell somebody like Joachim Andersen, who's 28 and doesn't quite fit in that same age bracket as some of their other stars. And really build around that 20 to 25-year-old core. But again, that's in a perfect world, and the 20 million they may get for Anderson might not be enough to balance the books. So there's a lot of options here, but they are getting a ton of interest, and that's to be expected. The question is whether or not they're going to be able to keep their young nucleus. They have done such a good job lately of building this young core. Eze, Olise, Wharton, Guéhi, and others that are in that 20 to 25 range, and the fact that they probably can't keep them all is an absolute travesty. And that, in a nutshell, is the problem with European football right now, and particularly the Premier League and the structure that it has. So that's what I'd like to see fixed. I would love nothing more than for every one of these players to still be at Selhurst Park in a Palace jersey on opening day in the Premier League, or more importantly, when the transfer window closes, since that's after opening day. But I would like to see this core stick together under Oliver Glasner's guidance and see what they could do, because it could be a really, really exciting team moving forward. I just hope we get the luxury of seeing them all play together for a full season before the thing is dismantled. I'd love to get your comments, though. Get down in that comment section. Let me know what you think. Should they try to keep them all? Can they try to keep them all? If not, who should they sell? And how many of these players should they sell? What do you think about the FFP rules? Get down in that comment section. Let me know what you think. You can also leave comments on Twitter at Pitchside Pub. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for me down below if you don't already follow the channel. And check out the website, pitchsidepub.com. Thanks as always for joining us here on Pints and Punditry at the Pitchside Pub.